Hello, my name's Gavin, this is Genre Books, and until I finish the Read What You Own challenge to read 100 books before I buy any new ones, I am going to be doing these weekly little roundup videos. Some of them are going to be better weeks than others, let's face it, but I had a good week this week, which is the fillip I needed to get me started. I need to keep or try to maintain this tempo of reading books. So short books might be the way forward for me for the next couple of months. And I think the first book I've got to talk about, which I read on the Kindle, is possibly the shortest of the lot. This was A Houseboat on the Styx from John Kendrick Bangs. This is from 1890 something and deals with how people are getting on in the underworld. I don't want to talk much about it because I have plans to do a whole video about John Kendrick Bangs, so I won't trail any of that here. Needless to say, I did enjoy it, and for a comedy from the 1890s, some of it was still remarkably funny. I am not throwing myself wholeheartedly into booktube events at least until the new year. However, there are events still going on, and I would like to at least dip a toe into these. One of these is New World November. This was originally an event from the Bookish Bryants, and Gareth at Book Songs and Other Magic is still maintaining that event, so I've absolutely no problem with reading some sci-fi to join in with that. To that end, it was fortuitous that at the beginning of October I pulled out this book from the tote bag of mild peril to read, and didn't get round to it during October. This is Larry Niven, The Long Arm of Gil Hamilton, and I don't think it's not that I've not read a science fiction detective story before, because I have, because I, Robot is a science fiction detective story. But this, I think, might be the first hard-boiled science fiction detective stories I've read. There are three loosely interconnected stories in this short book, and it was a lot of fun. It must be quite difficult to pull off a science fiction detective story because there are so many more ways of solving a story through science than the normal detective story format would allow you to have. And you really do have to balance that. It has to be within the parameters of the world, which means you have to set the world building up very rigidly and very quickly, which this book does. This may also sideways qualify as occult detective fiction, just marginally perhaps, because the long arm that you can see here is his psychic arm. He was originally an asteroid miner. He lost an arm out in the asteroid belt in an accident. Normally you can get a replacement limb very quickly. He didn't, and therefore developed the psychic ability of this invisible arm he now has, even though he now also has a replacement arm. This allows him to, not do quite as much with it in the book as you might expect from the title and the cover. But it does come in, I'm going to say handy, that's not meant to be a pun, on occasion. As well as being New World's November, it's also Novelizations and Tie-Ins November. With that in mind, I read another stretch of Porridge by Clement and Ian Frenais, who are the scriptwriters of the original TV series upon which this book is based. And if you know Porridge, you know this is going to be good. If you don't know Porridge, this is the story of just trying to bide your time whilst being detained at Her Majesty's pleasure. A story of prison life. This is a collection, it comes across in the book as a collection of vignettes, short stories collection. In reality, you are pretty much reading the entire second series of Porridge, as well as the Christmas special. And a lot of the jokes are still in there. In fact, you could probably read this book quicker than you can watch the second series of Porridge, and the mental picture it conjures, because the series is so vivid. Yeah, it just really flies by, this book. Enjoyable, a bit of an oddity. I hadn't seen it before. I saw it on a shelf, thought, have to have that. And I'll be looking out in case there is one from the first series as well. As well as it being New World's November, as well as it being Novelizations and Tie-Ins, it's also Dr. November. And I think this book qualifies under all three of these categories. So I participate in 3 events with one book. The Prisoner. This edition came out to coincide with the remake from 2005, which I've not seen, but it is the same book from 1968, I think, which is based on the original Prisoner TV series, which is absolutely superb. Disch, I think, is an inspired choice for the novelization. I wouldn't have thought of choosing him, but he has really captured the spirit of the TV series, even though I don't recognise many of the events that happen in this book as having happened in the series. It is also full of literary allusions, which number 2 and number 6 are trading, as if they're trading barbs, and he captures that discombobulating sense. He doesn't always explain quite the setting where things are happening. You never know whether things are happening in reality or under some sort of drug-induced duress. But here we have it. A secret agent, there's your Dr. November link, wakes up to find themselves in a unnamed village. It is just called the village. You can't escape. There are lots of high-tech surveillance and high-tech security and quite weird security measures around the place, and every resident of the village seems to be in the same boat. We don't even know if the captors are prisoners themselves. Book number 5, October the 1st is Too Late, from Sir Frederick Hoyle, and it is a science fiction book club hardback edition with quite uninspiring cover. However, the innards are much better. This is also part of New World's November, but also preparation for a buddy read I am doing with Duncan from Back Away from the Donkey. We are going to be reading A for Andromeda and the Andromeda Breakthrough, co-written by Fred Hoyle with John Eliot. But here is a solo work. This book deals with the ramifications of being hit by what comes across as a very powerful stream of data coming from somewhere in outer space. I think they measure it as coming from the sun. And what it does is tears the world into various different zones of time. All of a sudden, ancient Greece has reappeared. All of a sudden, the entirety of the mainland United States has reverted back to what looks to be the 1700s. Britain still stays solidly in the 1960s, but continental Europe has regressed to World War I. Meanwhile, in Russia and China, it's the far, far future where an overpowering sun has melted everything. And it deals with how our protagonists try to cope with this new reality. Book number 6, and I'm back to Novelizations and Dr. November, this time with Michael Avallone and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. This is the first in a series of books based on the TV series The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Michael Avallone was screwed over by the publishers. I think he was given $1,000 and a promise of writing the whole series of books. So I think $1,000 wasn't a lot for writing a book based on a popular TV series, but knowing that he would be able to continue producing those books was the sweetener. However, other writers ended up doing the rest of the series. This is fun. It's zippy. It is obviously the early days of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and I think my only possible complaint with it really is that it is mainly based on Napoleon Solo. Now, I've not got a problem with Napoleon Solo, but Ilya Kuryakin really only comes into play in the third act. And I think this actually mirrors what the series was like at the beginning. This really was intended as a vehicle for Robert Vaughn as the Man from U.N.C.L.E. And it was only because Ilya Kuryakin was such a hit, especially with the ladies, that he became a bigger and bigger part of the series as the series went on. It has not quite so much the silliness that I remember, but I think that's because the later series became a little bit sillier. And I think this is probably the influence of the original Batman series. I think the success of the 1960s Batman series being so camp and so humorous really threw lots of other series for a loop. And The Man from U.N.C.L.E. did try and did succeed to a large extent to capture that essence. This is outlandish, but it is not funny. For the 7th book this week, back to New World's November, back to Novelizations and Logan's World by William F. Nolan, the sequel to Logan's Run. Logan's Run was not a novelization, but this sequel came out post not only the movie that was made, but also post the TV series that followed out of the success of the film. So this is much more tied in with the film and the TV series than you would expect a normal sequel to be. There are some changes. I think in the film your time runs out when you get to the age of 30. Here it's 21. Now they changed that in the film because they really couldn't trust a group of under 21-year-olds to carry a film. There are a couple of other changes which seem to be more cosmetic. I think he's Logan 5 in the film. He's Logan 3 in the book. Which, I can handle that. What this book is a lot more violent than certainly the film. And although I haven't watched the TV series that followed, I can't imagine that a fraction of what happens in this book would be allowed in the TV series. So, in a way, it's quite a departure. It's also not the last book in the series. I need to find the third and final instalment. Actually, I need to find the first instalment. I haven't seen a copy of the original Logan's Run, which I've not read, and now having read this, I want to read because I want to see how it differs from the movie that was made off the back of it. I wish I could say that every week was going to have as many books as this, because I will be done with this 100 book challenge before you know it. That's not going to be the case. I'll be choosing shorter books where I can, but I've got some coming up which I know are on the chunkier side. Not least of which a group read in December and January of Against the Day by Thomas Pynchon, which is, it's a 1,000-pager. There are also times where I'm going to be led by chance. This book, as I mentioned at the top of the video, was a choice, the random choice from the tote bag of Mild Peril. For those who don't know, the tote bag of Mild Peril is this tote bag. In here I have a slip of paper corresponding to every single book behind me. There are also a number of slips of paper in there corresponding to genres or subgenres of literature. Whatever book I pick out, I have to read it. If I pick part of a series of books, I have to read that series. And if I pick one of the genres or subgenres, I have to give a little précis of that genre or subgenre and read a book within that genre or subgenre. I think those are the rules. Anyway, I'll pick a book. If I pick The Wheel of Time, I am completely scuppering my Read What You Own challenge. A single piece of paper, and I have picked Deeper Than the Darkness by Gregory Benford. I know where that is because I've just done a bookshelf tour of it. So there we have it, Deeper Than the Darkness, Greg Benford. I got lucky, New World's November, short book. I'll add it to the list, hopefully for the next week or two. So there we have it, the first week of the Read What You Own challenge, and already 7 books in. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that tempo, cadence, whatever you want to call it. I won't be able to sustain it. But I have a very high-tech method of tracking all of this. There's a lot of blank still left on that sheet. Until next time.